Well, so the first 10 years of my working life with this project, I was doing something called Icon. And what I want to be doing for the next decade, maybe the last decade of my working life, is something called CCon, Church of the Contradiction. I actually, whenever I came up with Church of the Contradiction, I didn't realize it could be shortened to CCon, so actually I quite like, because there's Icon and there's CCon, and they're very connected, but they're also different. What I want to do is talk a little bit about what CCon is, and connect it to this notion of raveling. And I hope by the end of the seminar to give a sense of, what I'm trying to do, and what those of us who are part of my Patreon and being part of this work are attempting to do. And as I said at the beginning, this is for me a reformation. And a reformation is obviously a theological term. I want to give it a philosophical interpretation, so I'm going to use some terms out of continental philosophy. This, as I say, will help understand also, I think, what political revolution means, and also what personal transformation can mean. So in Lacanian psychoanalysis, there are two terms that are often used that are connected. One is called acting out, and the other is called the passage of the act. There's a French version name for it, but I'm not going to destroy French by saying it. So passage of the act. Now, acting out is a term that's used in a lot of places and in a lot of therapy. And acting out simply means that someone does an act that it has meaning, that can be interpreted within the symbolic system that it's embedded within, right? So acting out. So an example of that is a child who is acting out in school. They are being disruptive in school. They're not doing their homework. They maybe shout at a teacher. They maybe hit another pupil, right? They're acting out. And they're acting out in that is a symptom that has a message, right? And the message is, can be a number of things. It might be that things are really bad at home, that they feel anxious, that they're not able to socially interact with others. They're finding it really difficult to do that, right? So what acting out does is it's a message that has to be deciphered. And when you decipher the message, you can address it. And almost the acting out happens precisely because the child can't symbolize that. They don't know what they're trying to say, so it's said, but it's said in a way that is, as I say, not something that they can themselves understand. But another example politically would be protests. Protests can be seen as a form of acting out in that many protests are asking for things. There's a problem within the society. You protest, you have certain demands, and you want those demands to be met. Right? So again, the protest, and even if the protest is a violent protest and a protest that isn't well articulated, still it can be deciphered, and when you decipher it, you can address the message. Right? Now, the passage of the act is more interesting and initially a bit more difficult to understand. But the passage of the act is an act that doesn't make sense within the dominant frame, the big other, right? The legal, civil, cultural norms of a given society, right? A passage of the act doesn't make sense. It is an explosion of some kind that cannot be interpreted, cannot be decoded, cannot be deciphered. But what it does is it breaks the current interpretive lens and creates a new way of interpreting the past. So the passage of the act is not something that happens within a given order. It's what cracks a given order and creates a new order. I'll give an example. I'll give a few examples. One very basic example might be having a child, right? So you might not want children. You might, value certain things in terms of having money, being able to sleep, being able to travel when you want, right? All of these things that you value. And so having a child would be disastrous, right? It's definitely not something you want. And then let's say, you get pregnant and you have the child. What can often happen is that act breaks the previous way that you understand and interpret the world and retroactively becomes something different. The act is not interpreted by the system. It creates something new, and now you cannot imagine not having a child. And you look at your past life as being empty in some way, as being cracked, as having some missing piece. And that child was the missing piece that you never had. But the trick is that's a retroactive interpretation. It's not that you were missing the child and then you had the child. You had the child and then retroactively the past was reinterpreted as missing something that the child is the answer to. Love is a passage of the act as well.